We killed the lights and crouched down in Uncle Bob's living room. We could all hear the thump drag of something making its way up to the house. I risked a look outside. Carol was painfully making her way up to the house, her left leg digging up a long furrow in the gravel of Bob's driveway. Uncle Tim poked his head out beside me. He hissed over his teeth.
Jesus. I expected bad, but I didn't expect that bad.
Bobby!
Carol's voice rose in an eerie wail up to the house. I think the worst part of it all was that she still sounded like herself. The whiny, nasal screech that hit you in the spine like nails on a chalkboard.
Bobby! Get out here, I need you!
My mom joined us at the window.
Shit.
Suddenly, everyone wanted to cluster at the windows. Cousin Ellie turned white. Kevin gagged and had to put a hand in front of his mouth.
Hey! I know you're in there.
Everyone automatically fell away from the window.
If you don't come out here, I'm calling the police.
The good mood from earlier had evaporated. It's easier to say you're going to kill someone when they're far away. When they come up to your house looking like a half-ant nightmare, that's another story. Uncle Bob stood up at the fireplace. He was listening to Carol call and call, one meaty hand gripping the splitting maul.
Well,
He said calmly.
can't keep her waiting, can we?
He nodded to all of us, picked up the maul, and walked out of the room. We followed him. I've mentioned before that Bob is a DIY kind of guy. His place is kind of like a candy store for makeshift weapons. If there's ever a zombie apocalypse, I'm running to Bob's place.
Are we actually doing this?
Ellie murmured as she contemplated a drawer full of chisels. I picked up a brick hammer and gave it a quick toss to fill it out. Well, I said, if it helps, don't think of it as murder. Think of it as clearing dead wood. We gathered at the garage door. Bob hit the switch. The door made a painful grinding noise as it rose to reveal Carol taking her last steps up to the gravel before she hit the lawn. Carol stopped, peering around. She didn't look like she could see too well, like she tracked us through sound.
Bobby,
She said.
are you done hiding?
Oh yeah.
Bob said casually. We fanned out in a circle around her, giving her a nice wide berth. Carol kept cocking her head back and forth, searching with those piss holes and snow eyes. Her mouth holes showed signs of healing together and then being ripped apart again. Her words came out all pulpy mess like she had ill-fitting dentures.
Who's that, Bobby? Is David here? He needs to be punished.
Well, spank my ass and call me spoiled, I said, making her shuffle around to find the source of my voice. I do believe I am present and accounted for. Carol snapped her head back to look at me. The white sheet she wore wrinkled oddly on her body, like it was made from something other than fabric.
Bobby!
She wailed, turning back to him.
Look what David did to me.
She held up her gnarled branch hands. They looked painfully twisted and swollen, her pinky bent at an unnatural angle to her hand. Actually, she did that to herself, I said. I heard her. She said, I'm going with these nice young men to turn into a tree. Don't wait up.
Liar!
Carol hissed at me.
Dirty, dirty liar. You did this, and now you're going to prison.
For what?
My wife called.
Getting back into his own car after you stole the keys?
Carol whipped her head around.
Sally, I knew you two were in cahoots. I'm going to get your children taken away and raised right.
No one had broken the circle. I knew we were all willing, but I don't think that anyone wanted to be the one to land the first blow. Kevin sighed.
Why couldn't you have just stayed where you were?
Kevy.
Carol turned to him. She moved oddly because of her stiffness. It gave her a touch of the uncanny valley. She tried to purse her ripped mouth as she spoke in her baby voice.
Kevy, baby, you need to help Mommy.
Kevin cleared his throat, making a production out of it.
Why?
He said. Carol's face twisted. Her bratty tantrum face was made terrifying by her makeover.
Don't fun me around.
She hissed.
You help your mother. You help me or I'll have to punish you, too.
Don't you fucking threaten him.
Tim snarled, hefting a ball-peen hammer. Carol twitched.
Timmy.
It's Tim to you, bitch.
My mom stepped forward.
And it's Robert, or Bob, not Bobby. Fuck's sake, he's 3 years older than you.
Lila?
Carol lifted her branch hand to point accusingly at her.
You raised your boy wrong. I'll see you sent away, too.
Why?
Craig stepped forward.
What are you going to tell the cops? How are you going to spend this, Carol? You look like a wide-awake nightmare.
Carol, now sensing the depth of the shit she was in, tried her other tactic. She folded in on herself, making herself look smaller.
You're all picking on me.
She whined.
I've done so much for you.
Like break up my marriage?
We all looked at Tim. He was seething. If we were taking bets, my money would have been on him to strike first.
You told my first wife I was cheating.
He said, white-knuckling the handle of his hammer.
You told a bald-faced lie because you wanted Mom's ring. You had 5 of her goddamn rings. What was one more?
Carol got indignant.
That never happened. You're imagining things.
You called the cops and told them I was molesting my children.
Craig said.
Just because I didn't want you to come on vacation with us. Do you have any idea what it's like to have your kids taken from you? Oh wait, you don't. You gave yours up.
I didn't.
And you almost got my kid molested.
Mom had a linoleum knife. She pointed it at Carol.
Remember that? The prom thing I could almost write off as an accident, but what you did to David was unforgivable.
He would have deserved it.
Carol exploded.
He was being rude. You're all being rude. If Dad were...
Don't.
Bob pointed the splitting maul at her.
Don't you dare invoke him. Don't even speak his name. He wouldn't have spent so much time protecting you if you hadn't lied to him about Mom.
Carol made a pitiful face.
It's not a lie. It's true. She really did try to drown me.
There was a brief moment of silence, and then it was broken by a sharp, pointed sound. Kevin had put his axe down to lean against his leg. Now he was slow clapping so hard it echoed off the house.
And that
He said, picking up his axe again.
is the punchline. You can't even keep your story straight.
Carol kept opening and closing her mouth like a fish gasping for air.
Kevy, I'm your mother.
She simpered. Kevin's face hardened.
You sold me for the price of a facial and a new car once a year. Fuck you.
Carol's face twisted. She didn't really look human anymore.
You can't do this to me.
She hissed.
If I'm so bad, you're all worse than me. You let it happen. You can't just blame every problem you have on me.
No, but we can blame the problems you caused on you, I said, like deliberately bringing my family into harm's way.
That's your fault.
She jabbed her bony claw at me.
You could have taken the keys away, but you didn't.
Okay, well, then you could have turned around and walked back to the car and not been turned into a tree, but you didn't, so that's on you. Carol growled.
I know people. I'll make you sorry. You can't do this to me. People will...
No one will do anything.
My mom cut in.
No one even noticed you were missing.
Carol's face fell, and in that moment, I could almost feel pity for her. The monster who never learned she was a monster. Maybe if Grandpa hadn't protected her from the world, she might have done something more straightforward, like become a serial killer or a torturer, but instead, she was only just now realizing that she had never fit in this human skin at all. Kevin's axe struck her in the collarbone, making a hollow sound, and just like that, it began. One of the first things we learned hacking away at Carol is that the sheet on her body wasn't a sheet, it was her skin, which put those hedges at the mansion in a new disturbing light. The second was that whatever happened to Carol, it made her body really tough. I hammered her bent knee with all my force and still didn't break it. The people with knives were struggling to cut her. Carol bellowed and tossed my wife away with one thorny hand. I stepped on her wrist and pounded on one of her fingers until it finally broke away. It grew back almost immediately. I didn't waste time gaping. I just kept hammering away. Kevin gave up on her body and took the axe to her face, just trying to shut her up. The whole time we were doing this, she kept trilling how naughty we were and how we were dirty, dirty liars, and my God, this woman was annoying even unto death. Bob spit on his hands, hefting the splitting maul, and buried it in her throat. Carol finally went silent, jaw flapping. Uncle Craig took his pickaxe dead center to her torso, opening up the white expanse for the first time. Now my wife, rubbing angrily at her bruise, made the hole bigger with her knife. Carol was wrong inside. It was more like a collection of vines and roots. No organs I could see. We kept chopping bits away from Carol, but they would regrow. We kept at it. Eventually, the regeneration started to slow down. We didn't. We took Carol to pieces on the lawn. There was no blood, not even sap, and some of the pieces still writhed. And this may sound a touch cliche on my part, but we never saw any sign of a heart. My wife touched my arm. Looking alarmed out towards the driveway. I followed her direction and saw a van drifting up, white and silent as a ghost. I ran to meet it. I had a feeling I knew who it was. The windows all had limo tint, but as I drew near, the driver's side rolled down to reveal a young man with eyes colorless and clear as the moon. "You let her go," were the words I panted out. The young man made a small shrug.
She was not pure like you said.
I rubbed my aching shoulder. "Brother, you said a mouthful." He peered past me to where my puzzled family stood on the lawn.
You have no one left. None of you are pure.
Nope. I took a breath. But we're kind of okay with that. The young man blinked. He turned to the other men in the van, which was packed full. After some silent discourse, he turned back to me.
She is resilient now. If left alone, she will come back.
Thanks for the hot tip. Why are you telling me this? Instead of answering, the young man gazed at the mess on the lawn.
She talked,
he said.
Exorbitantly, even after she started her becoming.
He put the van into reverse.
We leave her to your care.
I waved bye-bye as the van backed down the driveway. My wife walked up beside me. Neither of us said anything. I just put my arm around her and held her. I write this now after everything is wrapped up. We parted ways peacefully that night, as a family. The four of us, me, Sarah, Kevin, and Tanya, crashed on the floor at her mother's place until morning. Jill was crabby the next day about missing the fun, but a box of crullers helped ease her mood. When we got back to the house, I had to laugh over the carton of milk on the counter. The girls looked at me like I was crazy, cackling over spoiled milk. But I was laughing too hard to explain. My wife called me a murderer. I called her tree hands. This time we both laughed. I think it was exhaustion mixed with relief. That, or we really are crazy. Is our family magically better? No. There's trust issues, infighting, the same crap that every family deals with to some degree. There always will be, but we're talking, and you don't know how good that feels until you've gone without it for a lifetime. We're not the best people. We can live with that, but since Carol's not around, we've been better, because that's what she really did. When she was around, kept us operating at our worst. In a way, Carol went home with all of us that night, after we had one more round of hot cider to chase away the cold and then went back to our cars. She'll stay with us as a reminder of what not to allow, where to draw the line, and I think of her almost fondly as I write this beside a fire, our merrily burning white twigs. Good night.